Good evening, everyone. My name is Mikkel Silversmith. I am the project coordinator, and I just want to thank everyone for hopping on here tonight. So this one is going to be our last part of our drought monitoring webinar series. Today, we're going to be covering the ZiaMet program. It is not the CoCoRaHS Network program, and I just want to share with you guys a little bit about who we are. So before I hand over the floor over to Dr. Du Bois, I do want to share with you all who we are as a project. Most of you that are pretty much familiar with our program, we're called the NSA Project. In all, it's called the Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project. We're funded by the USDA Outreach and Assistance for Native Farmers and Ranchers and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers Program. Some of our main goals is basically number one is to help producers with resources to help them improve their operations, both profitability and sustainability. You see several of our project partners that are on all our flyers from Diné College Land Grant Office, from the COPE and the Drought Learning Network, and as well as our specialists coming from New Mexico State University logos. We use a lot of their expertise and kind of give them that platform to provide their experience in research, depending either it's from the livestock realm of things, from cattle marketing, outlook, to sheep and goats, vaccines, protocol, to cattle pregnancy prognosis, to all sorts of topics. And we also host a lot of horticulture topics, from water storage capacity to fall gardening, prepping for composting, and so forth. So we usually host several webinars a couple times a month, then switch over to in-person livestock and horticulture workshops. So that's kind of the area that we are mostly involved in. And another goal of ours is to help increase our producers' knowledge in USDA programs. I'm sure most of you are all aware of NRCS and FSA programs. We hosted several virtual resource fairs to give the USDA local field offices here from McKinley County to Cibola and San Juan County the floor to share what type of local programs producers can apply for, whether they're ranchers looking to apply for EQIP or forage drought losses, to crop disaster assistance and so forth. So we kind of give them that platform as well. And hopefully we have this sort of platform coming up till more in-person held, I should say. And lastly, I do want to mention that NSA Project also has a conservation planning program that we offer in collaboration with Diné College Land Grant Office. So our project resource specialist, Mrs. Shirley Toth, and several of our resource technician assists ranchers and farmers both in Eastern and Northern Navajo agencies by helping them develop a basic conservation plan. And if you are a person that is in need of a conservation plan, definitely reach out to us. We'll share our contact information at the end of our presentation today. And lastly, our goal is to help increase local production of food production in areas that we serve, and that is McKinley County, San Juan, and Cibola County. For our garden projects, we have been using the expertise from COPE and a lot from Diné College Land Grant and NMSU CES specialists. So majority of you that have been tuning into our previous webinars, you guys all have perhaps seen one of them, from food preservation to garden planning and seed selection, perhaps one of those. So we use a lot of expertise from the LGO, from Daryl Yazzie, He's the Diné College Land Grant Extension agent that touched base on gardening, soil amendments to our folks that from the NMSU Las Cruces campus. They've shared spring vegetable gardening, and from COPE, they shared like from water storage capacity and so forth. So currently we're providing insight on gardening webinars, and hopefully we get back into in person, mostly held in Crown Point area. And if you are a producer or land board or grazing official, farm board member, definitely reach out to me if you're interested in wanting to collaborate more in gardening in-person workshops. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and switch the floor over to Helena to share her program. Then we'll go ahead and get started on our today's presentation.
Thanks, Mikkel. Shea Helena Desodinchia. I'm the tribal coordinator for the USDA Southwest Climate Hub. We are located down in Las Cruces at the Jornada Experimental Range. Our mission is to develop and deliver science-based region-specific information and technologies with USDA agencies and partners to agricultural and natural resource managers to enable climate-informed decision-making and to provide access to assistance to implement those decisions. We are also part of the Southwest Drought Learning Network, which is a peer-to-peer knowledge exchange between climate service providers and resource managers. Our main goal for DLN is to gather and share lessons learned from drought events to improve responses to future droughts. We currently have 4 working groups. If you're interested in joining any of those, contact me. The 4 working groups are Indigenous collaborations, monitoring and impact reporting, drought and ag, and sharing management's practice. Back it over to you, Mikkel.
Okay, thanks, Helena.
All right, let's get started. We got some stuff to talk about this session. And first, we're going to talk about the ZiaMet weather station network. And then I'm going to give a short briefing on the seasonal outlook, looking at mainly precipitation for the rest of the monsoon. I don't know about where you are. A lot of folks had some rain their way. Some folks haven't yet. Some folks had just a little bit, and some folks had well above average. So there's a whole mix of depending on where you are. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the weather station network across New Mexico that we're getting started. So what I want to talk a bit about first is what are these kind of networks? We call them mesonets, and the meso is that middle, and net is sort of the network. So it's a network of automated weather stations and there's 4 main things that they cover the area of 10 meters above the ground to a meter below the ground, so about 33 feet above. And just looking at soils below the ground, and we look at things like air temperature, relative humidity, rain and snow, and winds, solar radiation, and then looking at soil in terms of temperature and soil moisture. And then the feature with mesonets is we look at all of those variables at a sub-hourly resolutions. And most of the networks across the country do at least 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes, they report a value at each one of those things that I mentioned above. And the density is important. So they have a spatial density of approximately about 1 station per 1,000 square kilometers or greater. And a lot of the networks out there the spacing is about every 30 kilometers or so, give or take, because it varies. And then the big thing here is the emphasis on high quality data, reliability, and completeness to deliver data in near real time. So why do we need these? Why do we need this thing called mesonets? Well, as we all know, we really want to know what's going on where we are. So we need location specific weather environmental data. So a lot of times we get data from areas that are far away. So if you go online and look at weather, for your location, sometimes it points to something that's pretty far. And most of them is airports. So if you're far away from an airport, that's going to be a problem because we need specific to your location. And we also need real-time data. A lot of times we use our Masonettes for decision making on a sub-hourly basis. So like, for instance, if we have flooding, if we see a thunderstorm in the background, we would ideally like to know, is that producing rain? Is it actually reaching the ground? And is there a chance for that water coming down the arroyo? We don't have all that information, but that's the direction why we need more data, and we need it at a higher density on the ground with consistent sensors and high quality. We also need that not only real time, more of them, but at collecting data at pretty high frequencies. What in 1 to 5 minutes? Our network measures at 5 minutes. There are some networks that measure every minute, and that's a lot of information. But the users of those data sets, they really requested that we need a data point every 60 seconds in order to help manage things. So that's why we need these. A lot of times there's no other measurements, so there's a lot of big data gaps, and especially in the Four Corners area. Most of the areas where there's data, there's people. So high density people, meaning more data, where in general, less density of people, there's less weather data. So what we try to do is go in the other direction. Is to, instead of focusing on where there's already data, is to focus in on data sparse areas. And then over time, we want to build a climatology. That's all it basically means, lots of data and averages. And we need to cover more areas, geographies, hills, flatlands, foothills, the mountaintops, things like that, over different areas. And then what do we use our data for? Not only for decision making at the local level, but input to weather forecast models. So the forecast models that we use rely on point measurements mostly, and there's other data sets that go into it, but a lot of the areas where there's very few weather stations, they rely on other data sets like satellites. So if the more we give them, the better, or hopefully the better output they give us in weather forecasts. So we're trying to help push the envelope in terms of getting more data into their systems. And then, like I mentioned, there's satellite products out there that really need to be calibrated, because you can just put numbers in and get numbers out, but you really need to make sure that the numbers are replicating what's actually out there in the real world, and not just making numbers that computers can generate. And computers can generate lots of numbers. So another reason why we're doing more data collection is looking at trends. And this is just in New Mexico. These are the summer, that the June, July, August high temperatures are increasing over every county we have in New Mexico. And we want to be able to track this, and we want to be able to do it reliably over time. And so we need more information to keep that going in terms of, we need to cover all of the areas, not just one data point per county, or using a point in another county to describe where you are. So that's why we need to keep this going. And because we get things like this, these are the last summer, if you remember, it was pretty warm. And so we had many days above 100 in some areas, and then some areas in the northern part of our states, in northeast Arizona and northern New Mexico, we had many days over 95. And this is just a kind of reminder to show the number of 95-degree days we had last year. And you can see the blue ranges from 10 to 20, and then going into the real light blue is 30 to 40 days in the summer. And then as you go into yellow, it goes into 60 to 70 days in the summer. We had days above 95 degrees, and we need to be able to track that. And actually, this data set relies on the data from Masonets to help make better maps like this, so that we can talk about these issues and track them going forward, and relay this information to help, for instance, like health practitioners who make decisions on these. So when we also we're in drought, even though we got maybe a few areas, some good precip, we're still in drought. So we use our data to help with that, but from looking at better depictions on for instance, the U.S. Drought Monitor, we need to do a good job, but we need to have quantifiable data in order to do that. We got to have some numbers to categorize, to put them into the Drought Monitor. And we do things using our data from like soil temperature for planting time. We do things like irrigation scheduling, which would benefit greatly from site-specific weather data that uses site-specific evapotranspiration, and then tracking soil moisture for planting through the growing season. So, and then also things like using heat units for crop development and pest management. Those are some of our big users of weather station data that you can get, and that's kind of what we are heading toward in our applications. So in other areas that we want to really focus in on are soil erosion, and this is just shows an example of a dust storm that we had back in May of 2022. The pink areas, that's actually dust in the air, and the center of the image is the four corners. You can see the dust is moving from the southwest toward the northeast. That's typically our springtime high wind areas, and you can see the dust blowing off of areas in northeast Arizona and northwest New Mexico and blowing it into southwestern Colorado. And this is kind of when we have drought, this is our kind of unfortunately, it's a common occurrence when we get these storm systems that bring high winds in the area, and it is an indicator of drought as well. But it is blowing our valuable topsoil from an area where we want it to area we not necessarily don't want it, especially in the mountains when there's snowpack up there. So what in response to that, we really worked on filling in the gaps where we need data, we need more weather data, and so we came up with a network of more than 200 stations, and we called it ZiaMet, since Zia is our state symbol in New Mexico, and we got money from our state legislature as well as money from the federal government to augment our weather station network. We started off with about 30 long term, and then we added more to get it up to 200, and we're going to talk about that. And most of them throughout the state, they're on private land, and we use no cost agreements and memorandum of understandings. That's an MOU. And we have 3 different types of stations. They all measure the same thing, basically, but they're just different types of the same thing. We call them tiers, and we're going to talk about them. They're tier 1, 2, and 3. And for the ones that are in the Four Corners and mainly in San Juan and McKinley counties, we got mainly tier 2 and 3. I mean, tier 1 and 2. We do have one tier 3 up there. So kind of just zooming in on the northwest part of New Mexico, you can see it's the same map with the same symbols, but where we have the weather stations and what communities. And so we worked with the Navajo Fish and Game, the climate change program, and to help facilitate the discussions with mostly chapter houses, and work with them to get community support as well as chapter approval and the going forward and then getting signed agreements in collaboration with the Department of Water Resources. And we got Dr. Nygren's signature on getting all that approved, and so we got that done last year, and then we had a contractor install the towers at most of these places, especially the areas that have the yellow and the red triangles. The yellow are the tier 1, that's the 33-foot towers, and then the red triangles are the 10-foot tall structures. And so they all measure temperature, humidity, winds, solar, precipitation, and soils. So it's just different types, how high the towers are. And so those are what we're working on right now. I've been out to Ian Bato, Rock Springs, Black Hat, Crystal, Toadlina, Standing Rock, White Rock, and those are the ones I've recently been to, and also Bread Springs, is on the Navajo boundary. And I've got a few more to go, and to visit. I've got the next site visit. I'm going to be putting more sensors out. So right now we've got sensors that are on those stations, and my next thing is to finish putting sensors on, and then instrumenting the top of the towers, the 33-foot part of the towers, and then putting the telemetry, means the modems, the cellular modems. So I've been going out and surveying which cellular provider is the strongest, and I've got a contractor to help with that as well. Finding out a combination of Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, which one is the right one, and where are the towers. So there's a little bit of site survey, and then in getting the right modem, because each modem is specific to the provider. So surprisingly, there most areas I actually can get some cell signal, which is great, because a few years ago there was a lot less cellular coverage across this area, and I thought I would have to use satellite, because we do have the option to use satellite, and we may need to have satellite in maybe 1 or 2 locations. But in general, we've got cellular coverage, and which makes it easier on us and a lot less troublesome, and at actually a lower cost for us as well. And so that's our third step. Remember, our first step, we've been getting the first sensors out, and then putting the second step is getting the 33-foot sensors on, and then putting the telemetry. And we may mix the step 2 and 3 together in one visit. But that's where we are with the current network now. And you can, and I think we since this is recorded, you can go back and look at review which areas. And for instance, like the Sheep Springs, Chaco, and Pueblo Pintado, those are also in the progress of getting built. We've got the Sheep Springs one is up on the road that goes up toward the pass. We're basically re-instrumenting that one from an older station, as well as the Pueblo Pintado. That was an older station, and we're replacing all the sensors and everything. And the Chaco Canyon, that's one that's an existing site that we've had for about 10 years. So that's one that's already there, as well as the Farmington one and the 2 Aztec. Those are existing sites. And so what in terms of the nitty gritty, these are the sensors we have out there. If you're a sensor geek, you can look at these. But we have all these are professional grade sensors. They're high quality. They provide reliable information on the weather, and we do measure the values of all the variables every 5 minutes. So we provide maximum, accumulated, or minimum, average, all those for all those sensors. So that's how we collect data, and it all goes to our website, which I'll show that in a minute. So I just want to show pictures of our 3 tiers. So on the left is the tier 3. That actually is the one it's an Aztec up on the hill at the San Juan Soil and Water Conservation District. And so that's our tier 3. And the middle one is tier 2. That's at Tolina at the fish hatchery. So that's that how high the tower is specified by the tier. So the tier 3 and 2, they're 10 feet high. And the tier 1 on the right is the 33-foot or 10 meters. So it's similar to the tier 2, but we put 2 more sections of the tower on, attach them, bolt them on, and then we put sensors at different heights of there. And we have fences over most of these, mostly cattle panel. I may at some locations we'll be putting in chain link fences there, but that's what they look like. And like I said, they all measure the same variables. It's just some of them measure a little different, and it's some a little bit different heights. So in terms of how we get data, I created this graphic to show all over on the left is all of our locations, and then all that goes to a cloud server. It's basically just a computer system, and then that we feed that through our website at NMSU, and then going below that says data products. We generate some products like evapotranspiration, the grow in degree days, and then we create things like graphs for soil temperature, moisture, and then we're likely going to have more of those. And then going along the horizontal, going from left to right, we send our data out to the public, which goes into this national program. It's called the National MesaNet program, which goes to National Weather Service operations, and then this company called Synopic. They actually pay us to produce the data, and then other public websites like this one called Mesa West. And so you can actually get the data at all three of those locations. There are websites for those. And then that's our goal, is to get it out to the public. And then below that, in the white letters, weather.nmsu.edu, that's our public access site. It's free. You can go there. It's all the data is updated every 5 minutes. And so you can get the latest in there. So, and currently right now, as of today, I think we have 81 stations online across the state of New Mexico. And over time, we've got technicians out this week, actually right now, doing stuff. And I'm actually heading out to San Diego Pueblo tomorrow morning to help install that station out just north of Albuquerque. And then we'll be getting other stations out in the Four Corners. So that we've been doing that all summer, and we'll be doing that for at least a few more months to get everything out. So I just want to show the website. So this is just the top is the winds, the wind chill, and then relative humidity. I'm just scrolling through the website, and then the mean wind, average wind, and then wind direction, and then the solar radiation. So those are all, and then you can use your mouse. If you're on a desktop computer, you can get values. And this one is the one at Bernalillo, the Coronado Soil and Water Conservation District. And so just to show you what we offer in terms of data in the last 24 hours, the 5 minute, each dot on this map is a 5 minute value of all the weather. And so we have this on our website. That's the weather.nmsu.edu. And then we can go through and actually go for past weather for like, if we do like, I'm going to just demonstrate the evapotranspiration. If you want to use that for like irrigation scheduling, you can just use that requester, and any one of these you can choose, and then the start date, end date, and whether it's a comma separated variable for like use in Excel, or just a valuable, a table on the website. And this is mainly useful if you have you could do it on your phone or a tablet. It looks better on a desktop computer, but I do this on my phone as well, and it'll just show. You can look at soil temperatures, the growing degree days, summaries. If you want to know like the amount of precipitation you've had since January 1st, you can pick the start date as January 1, and then pick today as the end date, and then hit table, and then submit, and you get a value for your for that station. So that's our goal. So that's the interactive. What I've been chatting with folks at some of the chapters and some of the other folks we've been working with, and I'm thinking about making a monthly summary, either something we can email out or print out and snail mail it to some folks who don't have real reliable internet, is to provide that. I'm still working on that, on the details on that. I think we can easily come up with a template on our web server to generate those, and so that's not a big deal. It's more of how to get that information out to the community. That's where we want to get the information out to. So providing monthly updates on how much precipitation and percent of average, highs and lows for different days, and where things are going, or even at the time of emailing, maybe a real quick description of the seasonal climate. What to expect in the next 3 or 4 weeks or the next month. Something very, very small, just one page to email out. And I think that's kind of what I'm going to be working on, thinking about. So if you have any ideas, let me know. Or if you have other ideas, let me know as well. Our goal is to get the data out to the community and to the public where it can be used for decision making. And if there's some other way that we can do that, by all means, just let me know. So I just want to transition to kind of looking at the status of where we are in the drought, and the kind of, okay, where do we think we're heading in terms of the future, in terms of using our computer models, and or things like how bad is our drought going to improve or get worse. So this is the current map, which came out actually today, Thursday, July 18th, in the U.S. Drought Monitor for the Navajo Nation. As you can see, there's a lot of areas that are out of drought, but the yellow is at pre-drought. That's at D0, which is abnormally dry. But then as you go further into to the Eastern Agency into New Mexico, on the east side of San Juan County. You can see there's drought. It was in a D1 moderate drought, so it's not bad, but it's more of keeping track of that and seeing where it's going. If you if we zoom out a little further into the Four Corners states, we can see where kind of how that fits into Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. That little swath of D1 in San Juan County, kind of over time we've had a little less production in terms of precip and snow, and so there's a little area there that goes into Rio Arriba County. It's a little bit drier there, the intersection that kind of that southeast area of San Juan County. And overall not bad. Colorado pretty much free of drought, and we may be seeing that in New Mexico soon. We'll see how it goes, see how the monsoon goes. Most of Arizona, and especially Northwest, is mainly just in D0. Not until you get further south do you see problems with drought, especially if you get south, the southern third of New Mexico and Arizona. Looking at the outlooks for the short term, this is the next 7 days. So today is July 18th. And so this is valid this afternoon through the afternoon of the 25th of July. As you can see, big swaths of precip. This is the expected precipitation in inches for that period, the next 7 days, which is about 168 hours, 168. As you can see, big areas of the country. I mean, you can see along the Gulf Coast, upwards of 5 inches. But across the Four Corners, it looks like there's having a dry period over the next 7 days, especially on the far, as on the far western side of the Four Corners into Arizona and southeast Utah. As you go further south and anywhere toward the east, going into New Mexico, and especially the higher terrain, we're expecting precipitation there, and a higher terrain of upwards of 2 inches. At least 1.5 inches in some of the areas, and going further south in Arizona along the Mogollon Rim, there's some rain, and as you go into the higher elevations, at least 1 inch of rain there. So that's good news. You can see the moisture plume on the Sierra Madres in Mexico. That's the kind of the western side of Mexico there. We're big swaths of at least 2.5 to 4 inches of rain, so that moisture is still there. And then as you can see, the moisture in central Texas is there. So hopefully that the monsoon signal still keeps on going, at least for a little while. We're still at the beginning of the monsoon here, so we have high hopes. So if we look at at least through the end of July, this is the outlook for the temperature on the left and precipitation on the right. Looking at temperatures first, we see a cooling down because of the precipitation. That's looks like it's going to be there a little longer over the Southern Great Plains into the Mississippi Valley over toward Louisiana and Arkansas. But as you go further west, kind of transitions into that drier and warmer, actually not drier, just warmer, as you go into the eastern side of New Mexico, probabilities are cooler, but as you go further west, above average temperatures going into the Four Corners. And then that's temperature. As you go into precipitation, most of our areas are looking good for the continued monsoonal moisture throughout the Four Corners area. The green is particularly good. That's at least above average, 40 to 50% probability above average, maybe even down to 20 to 30, 33 to 40%, that more likely. And then the gray is good too. That's near normal, which is good. We'd like normal. We don't want any below, unlike what's going on in the upper plains. If we look further out, going into the end of July toward the first week in August, so far, and this just came out on the 12th of July, the temperature is still that same pattern of warm above average. And then over on the right, the probability precipitation percent chance, 50 to 55% chance of above normal. precipitation for most of New Mexico and all of Arizona and a big chunk of Utah and all of Nevada, which is good. And so that's our good sign. That's the good story. That's the very positive thing we have on this presentation here, that at least right now we've got good moisture in that lasts through the first week of August. The next slide, not so good. So this is for the rest of August. So the same kind of thing. We got temperature on the left, precipitation on the right. That warm signal still there, above average probability of above average temperatures. However, there's the models and the Climate Prediction Center is starting to signal that maybe the monsoon is not going to be as strong in the rest of August. So remember the previous slide showed the first week of August looked okay, but then as you go further down into the monsoon later on, it looks like we're going to get not as much precipitation. So maybe the conditions, the high moves out of the prime spot. Maybe it's hard to tell from here. I'll have to look more on the weather maps going out to a month, but the bottom line is that be prepared for maybe a slowdown in the monsoonal moisture in the rest of August, maybe starting the second week and going into the end of August. A drier signal popping up, and at least probably like a 40 to 50% chance of below average precipitation in the Four Corners. So just kind of keep that on your mind. Toward the end of August, we may dry out and get warmer. And as we go further, going the rest of the monsoon, this is the August, September, October outlook. Again, warm temperatures. So keep in mind that. And on the right, that signal for below average precipitation is still there. It remains there. It moves a little higher up, but bottom line is it's showing the persistence of below average going not only from the end of August, but September and October. So that would be the current outlook for the rest of the monsoon. So the bottom line is enjoy what we already have, and hopefully we get some really good rains in the next 3-4 weeks. But there may be a slowdown in that, and so be prepared for warmer and maybe drier conditions. It may not be in general for all the areas, but this is kind of the current outlook for going out to October. So what does that mean for drought in terms of where we are? This was released this morning, the U.S. seasonal drought outlook. Where there's chocolate means there's drought is persisting. And so, which I think that their indicator, this is the Climate Prediction Center, is saying that if there's drought, it's likely going to stay. And if where there's kind of that yellowish thing there, that's drought development likely. So not a lot in the Four Corners. If you go a little bit just north of I-40 in Arizona, and going toward the Grand Canyon, maybe some development in that area up toward Flagstaff, but not a lot more development until you get further south, and then going up to northern Utah and south northeast Colorado is where more the development is. If it's not drought now, it may get drier there. So which is good. If there's no drought, they don't expect any more new drought to pop up in New Mexico. However, just there's a few areas, so which is it has some both good and bad prognosis here. So that's it in terms of what I have. I'm wishing for more of that picture there on the left. Those kind of storms where the rain is actually reaching the ground, where we get some good precipitation. And so I appreciate this opportunity to brief you all on the Mesonet, the ZiaMet, and keep tabs on it. We're still in the building stage. We've got the towers out, but we're putting the sensors and getting staff out there to putting everything together and testing and getting on the website. So I appreciate your patience in that, and we hope for more rain and hopefully we get some before the monsoon may peter off. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So we'll go ahead and open this time for questions. So if you would want to unmute yourself, you're more than welcome to. If not, then you can always open the chat box. Thank you, Marge, for your comment. Thank you for the update. Yep, thank you. Let's see. While you guys are still thinking about your questions, I'm going to release a poll and launch it. George, yes, this is the fourth part of our series. The three are not quite identical, but we do have them recorded and they should be on our website. So I'll share with that after if no one has any more questions. If there are none, that will conclude our presentation today. Awesome.
Actually, Dave,
Oh,
I
go
have a
ahead.
question.
Elena,
Yes.
go ahead.
Can you bring your PowerPoint back up? So on
Sure.
the short-term outlook, there's it says leaning, or there's, well, I'll see it when you share it. Maybe slide number 18.
Let me know which one.
Okay. You see where the legend, it says, or maybe it's the next slide.
This one?
Okay. It says leaning above or likely above. Do you like kind of describe what those mean? Like the probability percent of chance? It's broken down
Yeah, so
into categories.
yeah, so they like to give a little more description. So instead of just give you a bunch of numbers, so they start out. Let me turn on my I don't know if I can. Well, anyway, if you look at the legend down there, either from precip or temperature, the least the lower numbers. So if you're looking at temperature, the warm colors, the reds, they start at 33 to 40, 40 to 50, and it goes all the way to 90 to 100. So instead of just giving those numbers, they sort of made a little bit of a guidance on if it goes from 33 to 50, they're saying those are more leaning. It's not real solid. And so it's like, okay, we're kind of, the models are maybe showing maybe like I'm just throwing out a number, like 6 out of 10 of the models are showing this direction. There's still 4 of them are not, but most of them are leaning toward that direction. Whereas if you go into the 50 to 70 to 90 to 100%, that means all the models agree and you're pretty confident that they're right. And so that's likely. So, and the same goes with all the other ones, the colors, if you look at the precip and temperature. So it gives you a little more guidance on, okay, it's if you look at one of the contours and it says 40, so well, 40% is not a lot, but it is a number. It's not zero. So it's kind of leaning. Whereas if you have a 70, that's like likely. So they're real careful on what words they chose, opposed leaning versus likely. It gives you a sense of how confident they are in the probabilities. So if it's like 50%, it's like, it's like tossing a quarter, it's like, oh, well, 50% is only two options there. But if it's 70%, you have a better chance of coming up with that answer. So I don't know if that helps in there. It's sort of that new description of the probabilities. But yeah, it's I think it helps me because I don't know, likely, I don't know if I would choose 50, but but it does help a little bit. So hope that helps.
Thanks, Dave. And for the near normal, like how far back does that comparing it to?
I think they used the climate normals, the 30-year period, which ended in 2020, going back 30 years. And so they use the climatological numbers from the from the weather stations, and then they use the models to help how close are the outlooks, and these are all based off of models. So they have a whole bunch of models. They call them ensembles, and so it's they literally have, you know, dozens of models that they use, and they, you know, you can't just rely on one because one might be kind of errant. It's like, okay, that one kind of goes away, but if you look at the whole crowd of models, it gives you a sense of how much they agree. And so if it's near normal, is it they're kind of tending toward or likely above or below those averages from individual weather stations?
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, so we do have 3 questions for you, Dave, in the chat box. I'm not sure if you see it.
Yeah,
Um,
let me look there. Okay. Oh, okay. So what does the outlook mean to you? So I think right now the outlook, depending on where you are, of course, if you're in the areas that are in the for the at least for the precipitation, then the temperature outlooks are pretty much showing the same story, above average. So expect to see more of that warm temperatures, more evaporation. If we do get rain, we may lose some of it, more than we used to from evaporation and transpiration. So our animals may need more water to irrigate things. They may need a little bump it up compared to average. For the precip, you know, like I said before, the short term looks pretty good for the monsoon for most areas. It's just that after that first week of August, they were looking at the chances of the monsoon kind of petering out over most of our areas. And so in terms of the accuracy, you know, we're providing, except for that very first graph, that one is a quantitative precipitation forecast, and it's sort of the median of all the models out there, showing what's likely, the average of what the next seven days. However, the other ones, um, their probability. So, and like I said, they're from a lot of different models out there, so they show the groupings, and like are like half of the models or 6 of the 10, and there's more than 10 models out there for sure. I'm just showing you to simplify it. The majority of the models are showing the going in this direction, either drier or wetter. And of course, you know, these are models. You know, we you know we rely on those to help, and it is only a guidance. We sometimes will use kind of our skill in certain areas. You know, if it's an area that normally gets a below average because it's in a lee of a mountain, you know, or an opposite, there's an area where it may get orographic precipitation. So like uplift from a mountain, it may get more rain than usual. You know, from even though it gets average around the area, but that area gets above average. Those are some of the variations that we get. Even though these are broad national scale outlooks, so we, in terms of interpreting, we there are just broad brush outlooks. They're not specific locations, communities, and I think that's the bottom line for looking at accuracies. I don't know how sometimes they're in the timing. Sometimes there's a little bit of wiggle room in terms of the timing, so that they may not coincide with exactly the actual calendar. You know, like August 1st through August 30th. It may have a few days timing, you know, where that monsoon stops or dries out a little more. That timing may be different than like the 9th or 10th or something like that. So I wouldn't count on the exact dates on those, even though they're outlooks. They're just based off of from today, looking at the first 9 days or the 16 days or 30 days, 3 to 4 weeks, things like that. And these most of the outlooks are the monthly outlooks are updated once a month on the like the third Thursday of the month, and the other ones are updated weekly. It depends on the shorter model runs are updated more frequently than the longer ones, the seasonal ones. And that first one I have, I think, comes out several times a day. That the QPF, the quantitative precipitation forecast for 7 days. And then in terms of how far you go out in time, the outlooks, they go out a long time. You can go out. Some of them go out a whole year. So I mean, it's okay to look at those, but I wouldn't put a lot of stake in the ones that go out a year or even 9 months. But it is informative for us to look at if the models, if you just look at the models, what are they tending toward? And especially looking at things like El Nino and La Nina, we're heading into, we've been kind of going in and out. These are 3 to 4 year cycles or so, and going into a La Nina for our next what's on our menu. And so typically they have for at least a lot of our mountains areas, and they're warmer and drier in the winters. So if it's a more of heavily influenced by La Nina areas, we look at the next winter. So looking at winter of 2024, what is that going to look like? So starting like November, December of this year. So that's going out for several more months, and then going out to like January, February. I wouldn't put a lot of money on that, but it does show the tendency. Is the La Nina going to stick with us? Does the model show that? So I would look at that just for that reason, to look at the model runs going out, for 6 months. But I wouldn't make any decisions on that yet. Although it would help me steer away from saying, like, I wouldn't put a lot of money on having a really wet winter yet, because it's a La Nina. Although, even though that we may, because every La Nina is different, and then some are the strengths are different than others. So I always put a cautionary, when you talk about seasonal forecasts, that things may or may not actually pan out. And I like to use these as guidance only, because otherwise we don't have anything else. We have, we can wish there was a lot of things, but it gives us an inkling what could happen. So I hope that helps. I typically will bank more on the 1 month, which is way past the weather forecast of 7 days, but it doesn't really give a quantitative number on how many inches will fall. They give a probability. It's like, okay, it's like 50% chance of above or below average in that 1 or 2 months, and they typically they've been pretty good that 1 month. And as you go further out, of course, it gets less and less precise for both temperature and precip. Although the temperature has been more the persistence, because you can see the above average probabilities pop up every month, and then that's sort of a signal for these climate predictions. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, George, for your question. Thanks, Marge, for your comment as well. Helena did put down a link for the NOAA Climate Prediction Center website to find the outlook. So thank you again, Dave, for hopping on here once again, for sharing not just the Kokoros, but also the ZiaMet. So I really appreciate it. And with that being said, here's our contact information if you want to get a hold of us. So if you have any questions or comments that you want to share as far as what you want to see more of in our Drought Learning Network for the near future, please comment on our poll reports And if you don't have if the poll reports does not pop up, then feel free to email me. My email is right there, Mikkel Silversmith, and we also have Helena Deswood's email as well. So with that being said, if you have any questions regarding anything as far as what type of workshops that we can provide, and what our conservation planning is, and if you want to get involved in it, definitely for CPs, get a hold of Shirley, and her email's on there as well. And I just want to share with you guys real quick of our events that are going to happen this month and following next month. So next webinar that we have is going to be on July 24th, and this is going to be IPM strategies for trees. And this will be presented by Dr. King, and she is the NMSU entomologist specialist. So if you have trees on your gardening or your little property and want to know what kind of strategies you can implement, definitely tune in for that webinar. On August 8th, we have a home food preservation, and this one's going to be hands-on. So we're going to be dealing with jams and jellies, and this will be held in person at Crown Point Wellness Center. That's near the Office of Dene Youth, by the Crown Point Hospital as well, or not Crown Point Hospital, Crown Point High School, I should say. So if you want to, it starts at 12, attend on August 8th, and please register ahead of time. And we also have another webinar following that on August 14th. So those of you that still have your wool and did not decide to take your wool to the wool buy program, definitely there's another route to take if you want to use your wool and implement it in your garden. So this one is going to be mulching the garden with wool webinar, and this is going to be taking place on August 14th, starting at 5:30 p.m. And this is going to be presented by Dr. Stock. She is the urban and small farm extension specialist coming from Utah State. And lastly, to end our August workshop, we do have a livestock first aid training. Those of you that are on here, if you're not familiar with it, we did provide this 2 times last year, and it was pretty a good training session for a lot of producers that do not have access to a local veterinarian. And this one is just more of the practical small incisions, how to deal and mend using the kits that will be basically providing you guys at the end of the training, how to use that for all 3 species, from cattle, sheep, and horses, and how to implement vaccines correctly, how to keep them in a cool place, the do's and don'ts to vaccines, I should say. But definitely, we do have another event between August 14th and the 23rd. That would be the 2024 Food Summit. Once we get more information, I'll share that on our website. But for now, definitely, if you're in the area and if you want to register for a couple of webinars, feel free. It's on our website at nsa.nmsu.edu, and just go under upcoming events. Other than that, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to our webinar tonight, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.